Regional Water District. We are your regional water provider. We're one of four. So Dallas Water Utilities serves a large portion of the region, North Texas Municipal Water District, Upper Trinity Regional Water District, and then Tarrant Regional Water District. And you can kind of see our service area. We are the main wholesale provider for City of Fort Worth, Arlington, Mansfield, Trinity River Authority, where we get half of our water supply. The north plant of Grapevine pulls water from Lake Grapevine as well. But if you live south of Dallas Road, your water is coming from Cedar Creek, Richland Chambers, through Lake Arlington to the water treatment plant off Pipeline Road, or Trinity Boulevard, and then pumped all the way up to here. So that's a little bit about your water story. We provide regional water supply, flood control, managing the levee system in downtown Fort Worth, and recreation with Trinity Trails, and a couple parks at our lakes as well. Currently, our water supply is at almost 93–94%. Doing really good for this point of summer. We've had really good rainfall this year. Definitely the summertime temperatures, you've all noticed, they've been pleasant over the last 2 years that were record breaking. So current water supply is doing really good. The last 2 summers, we were hitting above, some days we're getting above 600 million gallons per day. And just like your home water use should be kind of a bell curve, if you're looking at January to December, your winter months should be your lowest use, right? And then kind of peaking during the summertime for outdoor water use. And this is kind of applies right here for the region. This is what we're serving. So generally today, we are providing around 500 million gallons per day that you are sharing your water supply with. And you can see the spike like in January, February right here. That was a cold spell that we asked everybody to drip faucets, or there were some maybe some main breaks. When we had the Ice-mageddon, that spike was our peak of the year. There were so many main breaks and so many people. We asked drips, and it's like a drip per second is really all you need to keep water flowing. But a lot of people just, then I need to, more is not better, but like I'll stream it, and I'm like, okay, but it can cause issues. You just need a drip during those times. But just give you we have engineers, right? We have planners, we have 350 people on staff to provide this regional resource. So we have communications, management, customer service people, just like your own Grapevine Public Works has people working 24/7 as well. It takes a lot of people, a lot of effort, a lot of love to work for water, and we really take that very seriously, and I'm proud to do it. One of the things we're constantly monitoring is the drought, and along with our water supply and our water demands, we're doing good right now. It just kind of entered into abnormally dry for North Texas, but if you ever do want to, this information is updated like weekly or every 2 weeks. This is some of the water planners. We're monitoring this information as well, anticipating demands as we move forward. But that's what we do. We built 4 lakes: Eagle Mountain, Bridgeport in the 20s, 30s, Cedar Creek in the 60s, and in the 80s, Richland Chambers Reservoir. Those are the sources of our main water supplies. In the 2010s, we brought on a 2,000-acre wetland, and so we are moving water from the Trinity River in through that wetland and introducing it back into our system. And so that is our core water supply functions. We rely on surface water. North Texas area, region, we rely on surface water. There's a little groundwater here and there, and we're looking at some different strategies in the future, but we rely on surface water. That means we need it to rain. If it doesn't rain, our water supplies are going down, and usage is usually going up if it's not raining very much. And we provide raw water. City of Fort Worth, Arlington, Mansfield, Trinity River Authority, they have the water treatment plant facilities and the obligation to treat it to drinking water standards to make it safe for our communities. But that is our role. Whatever needs that they need, we will provide the maximum amount of water that our customers need. But we share that water supply with the region as well as local as well. And if you have lived here any time, you know that it has been growing very quickly. So just looking at all of DFW Metroplex, we're looking at possibly 6 million more people moving here or living here or being raised here over the next 50 years. So where do the roads, where does the infrastructure, the education, everything, but we are in charge, where does the water come from? So you have people focused on that effort. For our service area, you currently share your water supply with 2.3 million people. We're looking at a doubling of the population over the next 50 years as well. And so lots of strategies are going into how do we meet that doubling of the population. And water conservation is our cheapest source. We've seen, water running down the street, or water being misused, or technology that's using a lot of water, but maybe there's better technology that does the same function but uses less water. So we know water conservation works, and it is the least expensive water supply because it's our current infrastructure, our current supply. It helps us be more resilient during a drought. It helps to meet the need of a growing population. And so water conservation is a significant focus of Tarrant Regional Water District and the water supply efforts of our customer cities. We do a lot of different programs and outreach and efforts, and tonight is one of those things. Quickly, some things for you to know. Hopefully you do know, but if you don't know, sign up for the weekly watering advice at waterisawesome.com. Free email every Monday telling you what your lawn needs based on local weather station and rainfall data. It is map-based. This week in Grapevine, most people just need 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, but some do need 3/4 of an inch. We give you a cycle soak settings to make sure that more of the water that you're using goes into the ground and is not running off. We want you to do short cycles. So still that 30 minutes, but let's breaking up into short cycles because our clay soils can't absorb all that water at once. So sign up for that free weekly watering advice. If you haven't done one yet and you have a sprinkler system, get a free sprinkler check. We have licensed irrigators that provide, we are busting records this year. Last 2 years we've done just over 2,000, we're close to 3,000 this year. So a free sprinkler check for residential properties anywhere in Tarrant County. And it's just to make sure your system needs to be operating so you can get that full value out of it. But if you know there's breaks or issues, get those things fixed, and then you have our guys come out and make sure that, give you tips on to improve and controller settings, etc. SaveTarrantWater.com is our local brand, and you can find a lot of that information and more classes and resources there as well. But tonight we're talking about water use, and just quickly, how much water are we using? So we do average generally 80 to 100 gallons per person per day. That's a general metric. Some homes, most water efficient homes in a year are using close to around 55, 60 gallons per person per day. It's definitely seasonal. In the winter time, you could be using 25, 30 gallons per person per day. And that 80 to 100 kind of includes some outdoor use as well. But overall, when you're looking at annual water use, about 40% is used outdoors. And of that 40%, it's estimated about 50% of that is wasted. Because with spray irrigation, they're only so efficient. Because the idea is you need to get the water in the ground so the roots of plants and turf grass can take up that water. But if you're using spray irrigation, there's lots of loss from wind and evaporation, inefficiency, spraying the streets, etc. So 50% of our water that we're using outdoors, we know, this is studies done across the nation, is being wasted. So that is where a lot of our efforts in water conservation are going towards, because it's that use that's driving our peaks to 600 million gallons per day. You saw in the wintertime, we're using like 250 million gallons per day. But we're building all of our infrastructure for those 2 months, 2 weeks in August. And it's extremely expensive. And it's getting more expensive to build that infrastructure just for those moments in time. So if we can do better outdoors, we'll be able to keep our water rates lower as well.
Do you want us to hold questions to the end?
Yeah, if we could, if you got a general one right here.
Yeah, because of that evaporation and everything, I always thought it was better to sprinkle the lawns and the gardens at night.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, you definitely want to water early morning is best, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. start times are ideal. St. Augustine, it's really hot during the summer right now. You don't want water on St. Augustine grass longer than 12 hours. It's really not an issue during this time of year, but if you're watering early spring and then in the fall and it's not evaporating quickly, you can get some issues with fungus if water is sitting there longer. But at 2 a.m. start times, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., short cycles, 6 minutes for fixed sprays, 13 minutes for rotors. Do multiple short cycles. only on 2 days per week, spreading them out. That's how you efficiently get that water deep into the ground. And so that is a little bit of what we're doing, but know that every time your sprinkler system comes on, it is thousands of gallons. It's 15 gallons per minute. You add up all those minutes, it gets to thousands of, every time you turn on that sprinkler system, it could be 2,000 gallons. Add that up, if you're doing every other day watering, this is how you get a water bill of 50,000 gallons, depending on the size of your property. But we are here to talk about water efficient landscapes and ideally, or specifically, turf alternatives. And that is where turf grass is requiring the most amount of water. And what use and function do we get out of it? There is erosion control. There's no doubt it captures particulates from the air. There is value in turf grass. There's also other value from other alternative landscape methods as well. And we want to talk about those tonight, and we want to promote those. And with our Water is Awesome program, I'll talk about a little bit later, we've introduced the Texas Yard Makeover. And we want you to think of your landscape into thirds. And it's just a simple design concept. If you were to start with a blank slate, that would be awesome. Well, a lot of us are just, we have an existing home, and maybe you make changes over time. And you realize how you're using your landscape. And if you were to just kind of think of your landscape, maybe a third of your landscape could be functional turf areas. My dog plays in that area, my kids play in those areas. I like to have a picnic in those areas, etc. So maybe a third functional turf areas that you are maintaining, a third landscape beds, or vegetable beds, or any reason, pollinator gardens, etc. Or a third hardscapes, walkways, patios, etc. So that this concept where, traditionally when new homes were being built, there's codes out there that it needs to be 80% turf grass, 2 trees, 4 shrubs, boom, we're moving on. With the cheapest sprinkler system that's available. And there are still homes being built like that, and that is not sustainable for the future. So we are concerned about that, but if you do have the time and the resources and the ability and the desire to do something different, which I'm thankful for everyone being here, this is a concept of just kind of thinking your landscape over time, kind of put it in thirds maybe, or just functional uses of your area. So diving into hardscape first, there is permeable concrete. If there is budget is no matter, you want the most newest technology. We have some of this at our Airfield Falls Park and in our demonstration on our campus as well. There is concrete out there that is fire code compatible to hold trucks for those moments. That will allow water to sink through. And so the idea is to get more water into the ground when it's raining, right? Reducing runoff, because stormwater has its own issues as well, with water quality and erosion and flooding locally. I mainly focus on water conservation and water supply. But there is a whole urban water cycle of issues and things to concern or things to know, right? And be good stewards of. But when you're looking at hardscape, there is, ideally it's permeable. You're in a sustainable landscape, you are trying to capture as much rainfall on your property and keeping it on your property as much as possible to make sure you're reducing the amount of supplemental water that you need through your sprinklers. So lots of different options with hardscapes. There's lots of different things you can do with rocks. That over here on the right side it's truly a rock garden at the Master Gardener demonstration garden off of 20 and 35, and it's open to the public. But I thought that was fascinating and just really unique and a nice feature. Over here on the left is a residential area. On the right, that is a new building at the airport. I know we're talking residential landscapes too, but I have seen more and more residential landscapes kind of put more rock in. And so I just captured that. And I think it does have spray irrigation. Ideally, it would be drip irrigation, but you see islands of grasses and some good perennials as well. Dry creek beds may provide some solutions, especially if you're having standing water, And I'm looking into this some from my home as well. We've experienced maybe harder rains, or other neighbors around me have started directing their rainwater to my property. I'm like, so that is its own little thing, but I think a dry creek bed, it doesn't have water in it all the time. It is just for a function to move water through. But it takes up an area that once needed to be irrigated and maintained. And not to say none of this has maintenance. There is maintenance involved in dry creek beds. I think, you read, like weed cloth is becoming kind of taboo. Like you don't really need it in your landscape beds, but it may have a function like dry creek beds, just to maintain the structure of the bed and maybe hold the rock a little bit or so. But weed seeds are still flying in, and so everything still needs to be weeded over time, no matter what, thanks to birds and the wind as well. But dry creek beds can be part of your landscape or outdoor living areas, patios, barbecues, fire pits. Hopefully they would maybe be draining off into your landscape that you can still capture that water or use that water as well. But great areas. If you are thinking, you're again thirds, what would I be doing in this area? Keeping things close to the kitchen door so I don't have to walk over here when I'm doing my grilling or what have you. So lots of things to think about if you're going to divide your landscape into functional spaces. Pathways, getting from one area of your landscape to the other, or this garden to that area. There's lots of different options with pathways, and they can be as simple as just mulch too. Now getting into the third, landscape beds. And so I will fly through quite a few plants and maybe some thoughts and ideas, but there's lots of resources out there that you can dive more into it. And we have, there's some QR codes, and there's SaveTarrantWater.com resources as well at the end that you'll be able to capture it with your phone. But we like to focus more on the native plants. There's lots of plants out there. There are adapted plants. Those are maybe your next best plants. Then there are a lot of plants out there that are tropical and may have some tiny niche uses, that we could understand, but overall, for our climate and for our water needs and to support our pollinators and our insects and our fauna here in North Texas, we need native plants. That is what they are for thousands of years. That is what they've accustomed to. That's how they feed. So we want to support those plants. If you have invasive plants or plants from another area, those are supporting generally invasive insects as well. So we want to support our Texas native bees or Texas native butterflies, etc. And you do that through native plants. And there are a lot of options that thrive and do well for our area. But one of the main things, if you have some, especially western exposure, and you have space for a shade tree, plant that shade tree yesterday. If you have the space, that is the most important, and if it fits your thirds. If it fits your thirds, but summers are hot, and that shade on that western edge is so extremely valuable. Like I have a red oak in my front yard that, I once sat on a jury where this guy went over there, told the crew to cut down those 2 trees because they were blocking his view of a golf course. And we awarded that guy, like it was 2 trees, and the guy that ordered it had to end up paying like $160,000, and he got off cheap. Like these trees have real value, economically for your home value, right? It may not be in the property value that we're paying taxes for, but people want to be around trees, and they recognize those trees. So if you do have space, especially for long-term cooling and climate benefits of trees, plant that shade tree if you have space. There's other ornamental trees that have nice color and value as well. And if you have extra space, maybe some fruit trees, and you can get into some of that as well. Under the tree, the deep dark shade, maybe just mulch. But then around the edges, you can have some park shade plants. But there are some shady plants that will fit and will grow underneath those trees. But it can be just as simple as mulch as well, and maintained and cleaned up and tidy. But lots of shade tolerant, part shade plants available as well that are native plants. I mean, you go to our forest areas, you go to our riparian areas, there are plants that it's lush if it's been untouched or whatever. So there are good stuff here that works for us. A wildflower patch, pocket prairie, these are awesome, these are fun. Some tips would be to make sure you are keeping the Bermuda grass out of it, keeping Johnson grass out of it, keeping invasive weeds out of it. It needs to, and know what's growing in there. So if you're ever asked, or you can kind of talk about it, make sure tips are maybe some defined borders a little bit, showing that it is being maintained, showing that I am paying attention to it. This is intentional. I only bring that up because there are weed ordinances here in our communities, and there is one here in Grapevine as well, 12 inches above for grass, etc. But if this should not be against code, because it is not a weed. You are cultivating native plants. So, but there are successful ways to do it that may minimize neighbor concern. Talk to your neighbors about it. Put a sign out there, you know, wildflower meadow or something. You know, there are techniques to do things like this that may not cause problems, but they are so fun to do. And fall is the perfect time to plant some seeds. There's ground covers that work really well. As for here, these are native plants and clover. I know, you know, clover lawns they've been in the news the last couple of years. I am uncertain. I've read quite a bit about it. I just don't, I believe, my understanding is they are a cool season plant. They may not fit very well in our North Texas summers. And the ones that they do recommend here is white clover that is not a native clover. So it does not support our native bees. It supports non-native insects and stuff. So there may be alternatives to that, but I'm still kind of figuring that out as well. But those are, but there may be uses for it. But just, I don't know, things to reach, you know, you aren't gonna get every answer tonight and right? But I'm giving you some resources and things to talk about and to think about as well. But lots of good ground cover options. Plant food. We do host classes on vegetable gardening and planting food, and it does require a lot of water. To grow tomatoes, like they're juicy because you are adding water every day to that fruit, but that is okay in our water conservation world because there's use and value of that water instead of just growing grass for no use at all. And if you are gardening, you are paying attention to your landscape and to your water use. So we do support, you know, growing food and alternative herbs, etc. If you're gonna do berries, maybe look at the thornless version based on my experience. Raised beds are awesome, really functional. You know, if you have the space and you have the means to do that, those are great as well. Getting more into native plants specifically, we do have a few lists that we do recommend for Tarrant County specifically. You can go to our City of Tarrant Water, we have pollinator resources, but quickly going down, you know, mealy blue sage is really good for butterflies. Salvia greggii, autumn sage is great. Turkscap can be part shade, full sun, etc. These little rosettes are gorgeous and through the summer almost. Zexmania is really hardy in drought, especially near the road with not a lot of water needed. Lantana, so there are lots of versions of lantana, lots of different colors, but if you want the Texas native lantana, it needs to be urticoides. That is your Texas native lantana. So know that and maybe support that version as well. You can go to box stores, you'll find lantana, but you won't find that one. You need to go to the specialty nurseries that have native plants, and you can find that Texas lantana. Purple coneflower, Greg's Mistflower, really good for butterflies and insects as well. Fall aster, so that'll probably start blooming September, I think, for like a good 3-4 weeks or so. It's just kind of green through the rest of the year, but even my neighbor complimented me. I just love that flower right there. So, and it pops really good. And some really good, after the, while the summer is winding down, now you get this great purple with fall aster. Texas sage, more of a shrub, right? But there are some different varieties with maybe smaller, that don't grow as big. Garda, I've kind of been introduced to that this year. I'm still learning too, and I know it's been around for a long time, but I'm interested in learning more, planting some Lindheimer Garda. Wine cups, sun drops, I'll talk about those. Apparently they are fickle, but there are spots where they do really great, and maybe not some others, and I don't know what those spots are. But don't forget about the native grasses as well. They can provide interesting focal points to break up your landscape as well, and do support our pollinators with shelter and food as well. Great options for turf grasses or native grasses, for bunch grasses. There is only technically one native turf grass, it is our buffalo grass. There is a Turfalo seed mix, I believe, with Native American seed that is blue grama and buffalo grass. So if you are looking to, typically our turf grasses are Bermuda and St. Augustine, and zoysia grasses are really coming around, and there are starting to be new varieties of St. Augustine that may use 30% less water or 30% less disease resistant. So there are universities that are creating these new turf grasses. But if you don't have a lot of foot traffic and don't want to do a lot of maintenance and not a lot of watering, buffalo grass, it does come in sod. This can be a turf grass option, full sun, and you do need to let it grow. Maybe mow it once or twice a year, and let it grow up to 6 or 7 inches, but does not handle foot traffic. This is not your soccer field grass for the kids or whatever. And it's full sun. But look more into it, and that is we do have a native turf grass that you can buy in sod. All right, this is not a residential example, but this is a library project that we did in Arlington starting October 2023. It was a landscape bed. You can see these turf grasses, they're kind of old. It's about 15 years old, and some boxwood shrubs, and it just needed a refresh, and they wanted to do a pollinator garden. And so we removed the turf grasses. We tried to start from scratch, but we had good bones, a good space, good soil. There's drip irrigation that needed a lot of repair, but the valve and everything is set up and ready to go. But that's October 2023. We are removing everything. Here we are in November 2023. So 1 month later, we have purchased our plants from Weston Gardens. Those bags that you see are bags of compost. We weren't putting compost throughout the entire area, just when we were adding a couple scoops while we were doing plantings for each plant. We had a landscape plan, and yep, we are installing our pollinator plants. Still, a couple days later, we bought way too much mulch, which was awesome, and spread it around the library, but you can see the finished garden back there. I forget how many, maybe 60 like 1 gallon plants, really small little guys. You can see where they're growing right there, but it's drip irrigation. And we also added like a little red sand or green sand and a little organic fertilizer in each little hole as well. It's not needed. Compost is good enough. Our native soils are good, but we have somebody on staff that likes to add some of this little organic additives, and I don't know if it helps or not, but it definitely, you'll see. But November, so small, last fall. Here's June. Lots of rain, and this is right after a rainfall. I wanted to see, how did the garden hold up with the rainfall? Is the mulch moving very much? Not very much, but you can see the growth. So it is starting to grow, went over winter, and it's starting to get big. And then this was yesterday. There are some spots where those sun drops and the wine cup are not doing very well. For some reason, not sure. Sun drops, half of them are living, but this is part of gardening. Like if you've done it, if you don't know yet, like this is part of gardening. Like things work, things don't work. These are opportunities to take that plant and divide it up into more plants and put them in other areas or whatever. So this is part of it. So I am sharing some of the things that we're gonna, so now we're thinking like, what are we gonna fill in those areas for this fall? Because this is a destination pollinator garden with plant signs, and this is the garden library in Arlington. So, and there's another view of it. So right up there, so remember that really small 1 gallon? And like, in 3 years, these will be huge. I'm already thinking we've got plants too close to each other. We need to start moving them right now. Why they are this manageable or so. So that is just a pollinator garden in an existing bed too. So if you've got an existing bed, that you can easily work with something like that. But I know we're talking about turf grass alternatives, but maybe you have some turf grass areas that are next to your existing landscape beds that aren't doing as well. So maybe we can think of, let's extend that landscape bed border and let's take over that super sun spot that's not growing turf grass or for whatever problems, and then convert that landscape bed to drip irrigation and maybe reduce that sprinkler head. Or these are things that you can start thinking of when you're looking at your entire landscape in thirds. And that Texas Smartscape website, I have it on the slide below, design tools. There are some, and so one way you could get graph paper out if you wanted to and find your plat and get down if you're really math oriented, like each square is 2 feet or whatever. You could really draw it out. It's not, you could hire people to give you a landscape plan. You can hire people to do the whole thing for you. But you have to give them guidance on what you want. But hopefully you're learning some of these tools and some resources that you can go to learn what you would like in your landscape and what would fit. This is a friend that lives in Plano that we were researching some possible spots for Water is Awesome. That's our regional campaign. We did Texas Yard Makeover Weekend Edition. What are some weekend projects that you can do to make over your landscape and to save water and beautify your landscape? We didn't use her house, but I took these pictures and I'm going to share them because they are great. And you can see the downspout right there. It does go underneath those rocks, and I think it pops out somewhere else, like in the yard. One of those types of things. But even just the gravel with the border was interesting to me. And then you can see this. This is her front yard, and so natural stone border defining that landscape bed. And she does not use just all natives. She's a master gardener. She also has some adapted plants and maybe some niche plants that she wanted. But you'll see, like, it's okay. Like she is managing her water. But she definitely told me about, because we were looking for projects too, and this is nice, 2 nice live oaks in her front yard. And those are the most, important, valuable things on her property, though, those 2 trees. So we cannot limb them up anymore to grow grass. So she wants to move, let's expand this landscape bed to take out more of the landscape plants and maybe put walkways in between and have plants on both sides. So these were some of her ideas. But then walking through her backyard is where she did get some help. She hired it out because she did some big things, but it was all her vision. So walking on the side gate on the right side, walking straight through, she has these borders all around her back fence with different garden nooks. And then they extended this patio right there in the middle for outdoor entertainment, and that took out a lot of turf grass as well. And then in each little corner, based on the sun and the amount of shade of existing trees or crepe myrtles, is what she put in those areas. So this area, they had a lot more full sun, more agaves, more drought hardy plants, a desert willow right there. You can see there is space in between her patio stone for water infiltration. She did use a lot of pots, and she wanted a she shed. Maybe wants to put a rain barrel on that downspout someday, but a nice sitting area, bird feeders, etc. And you keep walking around, you got the bird bath. And there's signs in there of like it's a certified wildlife habitat. Anybody can buy the sign, but if you're truthful, there's a checklist. You are providing the right plants. You are providing some shelter. You are providing water source, like your food or whatever. Like that's a cool thing. Be a certified wildlife habitat. It's like $30 for the sign, and like all your hard work, and display it and talk to people about it. But this little corner right here is a little more shade, so a little more shade plants and maybe a little, I don't know, meditation spot or so. And then over here on the left side is more of a pollinator garden. She has more pollinator plants. Then on the right side, you can see she has some raised beds in that area that is for active vegetable gardening, and cages because of the rabbits. And then behind the raised bed area and along the fence, some gravel just to help for drainage and to minimize any weed and maintenance back there between those spots. And you can see a kind of a look on the other side of those raised beds. And then a good 200-gallon cistern right there that she uses just to fill up that watering can and water some potted plants. But there is drip irrigation throughout all those other beds as well. So that's just kind of a look of like a real home landscape, dividing the landscape into thirds. It is a work in progress. You saw that front yard, but there's some elements through here that I felt, you may get some ideas or some thoughts too that may apply to your own landscape. When we're getting into like doing the work, it's not easy, especially if we're removing turf. And from my water conservation brain and what our job like, and there is it's called non-functional turf, like Las Vegas, Phoenix, they are paying $4 a square foot to remove non-functional turf. It's, it is turf areas that are being watered on medians or that no one ever walks on, but it's just, we're constantly giving it inputs, water and nutrients, but it's just visual and it's not really necessary. So maybe we can convert those areas to pollinator gardens, etc. We don't have any of those types of rebates right now in this area, but we're considering and we're looking at those. We need additional funding and support for water conservation programs, but in the meantime, we do want to talk to people about this concept of thirds, right? And what fits best for your landscape and your own bills, and how you want to use your property. But when you're getting into removing turf, if you were to do that, there are some options. We are recommending definitely, kind of the more labor intensive options. There is killing grass with herbicides is an easier option, but it may have other side effects that could be avoided if you are able to take advantage of other options as well. So, you could go to, if you were a DIY person, you could hire somebody out and you tell them this is how you want it done. They will do this. Sod cutting or manually digging it out. Just 2 or 3 inches of your own turf grass. You don't want to dig down too far, but you're just trying to take off that sod, basically, of that top layer where the majority of your grass roots are. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
But there are rental places here that I've had friends that rented the manual sod cutter, and he was really sweating. Which fascinated me. Wow, they rented that? And they also have motor-powered ones as well. They have, so you can get out there and do your own sod cutting, or just a shovel if you were to remove smaller areas. If you're getting into larger areas, maybe you rent something if that's what you want to do. You can also scalp the grass. This is how I've done some of my areas, and that is, mow it pretty low, and then maybe even get the weed eater out, and you're just all the way to the dirt, just removing as much as you can, water it in really well, and then I have covered it with cardboard, and then put like 3 or 4 inches of mulch on top and let it sit for a month. That's what I did a couple of years ago for a pollinator garden that I planted in September. And I did those activities in August. Like right now, like if you were to find, and I forgot to include the slide, but every September, these last few years, we've been part of a program of the Go and Grow Kids. There's a pollinator garden that is sold for like $80. It comes with 30 4-inch plants. It comes with a landscape design. It's for 100 square feet. It can be a circle, it can be a square, it can fit your landscape, whatever you like. There's been pickup spots in Bedford and Arlington and Fort Worth, etc. And I planted one of those, and that's how I prepared that 10 by 10 area of my yard I scalped it like I just said, and I let it sit, that cardboard and that mulch for 4 weeks or so. And then when I got my plants, laid them out how like I wanted to, and you just pull the mulch back, and that cardboard's already decomposed, and you just planted that plant. I didn't even put any compost in that area, but you could just add a little compost or whatever. Like if you have time, that is one way that you can convert a turf grass area. There are ways to solarize it as well. You can buy really good thick plastic and just let that bake and cook. It's just kind of, and smothering is another option I've been reading about, where cut it down and no cardboard, no plastic involved at all, but it is a good 8-10 inches of mulch. Like there are chip drops out there. I've never participated, but you may get, again, too much mulch than you can handle. Sometimes I've heard of neighbors going in together. All right, let's get one of those chip drops. And it's local tree companies that are, instead of paying to have it put at the landfill or at the grinding place, they can drop it off in your driveway for free. You get free mulch and they save money or so. I think it's called chip drop. But you don't get choices of when it happens or what type of material. I think I've heard really positive things and maybe some challenging stories as well. But many people, like, they put it all over their yard, and that's one way to maybe get a good 8 inches of mulch. But for Grapevine, I don't know. Do they still have the free mulch over there on?
Yeah.
What's that road?
Dove Loop.
Dove Loop. Yep. I've done that a few times with my recycled bins and filling those up as well. And that is questionable sometimes as well, but sometimes there's good mulch to do your own DIY projects. So those are options for removing turf. And I've already talked a lot about what type of plants work well and looking into landscape design and function of your property. Where do you find some of these plants? So you can't just, native plants, there are maybe 2 or 3 options depending on the year that you can find at the regular box stores, etc. But you're not going to find, if you're doing our plant search at Water's Awesome or Texas Smartscape, you're not going to find, I've got 15 good native plants. You're going to have to go to places that specialize or provide native plants. And there are organizations like the Native Plant Society or the Grapevine Garden Club that they also have seasonal plant sales. I have bought plants from these, stuff that won't be in nurseries, that they're doing their own, for fundraising and growing in their own gardens and greenhouses, etc. So I am not sure that there is a plant sale at the Butterfly Flutterby this year. Anybody know if there is a fall plant sale? They do on the website advertise a spring sale, and I have been to the fall one, but maybe they adjusted that and are only focusing on the spring one.
It's just a spring now.
Oh, question? Yeah.
The Fort Worth Botanical Garden also has one, and,
Yeah.
and there'll be a fall one.
Yeah.
The first weekend of October.
Awesome.
And then they also has one in Monterey.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of plant sales throughout the region as well, and but for sure next spring there's always the I think maybe with Earth Day time frame through the Grapevine Garden Club as well. You can see some of the nurseries that are kind of local here or nearby that specialize in some of these native plants. But when you are doing some of these things, you have a sprinkler system, we have to adjust those sprinklers because it was designed and installed for that previous landscape. And if we're talking turf alternatives, if we're talking removing turf, then you probably had spray irrigation there. And if you are expanding a landscape bed, ideally, in a perfect world, those landscape beds would be drip irrigation. New standards, there are new irrigation standards since 2009, and if you did have landscape beds, that zone has to be hydro-zoned for the plant material. And so a lot of times, some cities adopted drip irrigations required for landscape beds. So it could be a way where you could just extend your drip irrigation if you were to remove turf grass near a drip irrigation bed or so. But just know that if you have a sprinkler system, this class is not diving into sprinkler stuff. We've had these classes before. We have videos on our website. We have them on our YouTube channel. There can be classes, I think there's probably classes scheduled next year if you want to get more into irrigation. But like that is a component of, if you are changing your landscape, ideally that's where the water savings is going to come from my standpoint. We're adjusting the water needs to the plants. And so your native perennial plants need less water than your full sun turf grass. And And you should realize those benefits as well. And drip irrigation is on its own zone. Spray heads are on their own zone. Rotors are on their own zone. That is the efficient irrigation design and operation. If you mix sprays and drips, you're running drips for like 40 minutes, sprays 6 minutes. So something's getting overwatered, something's getting way underwatered. So that's why you keep them on their own zones. Texas Yard Makeover, I briefly mentioned some of that. Please check out that website. I want to show one of the videos. I think we have 13 minutes. Other resources, I've said SaveTarrantWater.com, waterisawesome.com, and TexasSmartScape.com. Those are all local good resources to help you with this topic and a lot of gardening topics. And your local master gardeners also have good resources as well. Sometimes your city pages have some information. All right, public debut of this video. I'm really excited about it. Yes. I hope you like it. I hope it's fun. I hope it works. This is my volume. Wish I had some corner. It's only 4 minutes.
Welcome to Texas Yard Makeover, Weekend Edition. One of our favorite ways to save water and create a great looking yard is to use native plants, featuring pollinator plants that attract hummingbirds and butterflies. In this video, we'll show you how to plant out a pollinator garden, look at some popular native plants, and walk you through how to get them in the ground and growing. Let's plant native. Today, we're at Texas Discovery Gardens talking with Sam, an urban wildlife biologist with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, an expert on native plants that attract our little pollinator friends. North Texas, heat of summer, why are these a good idea?
Once you establish these plants, they don't need a lot of water. I like that. And they don't need a lot of water to flourish and to thrive. Once you get them established in your landscape, they will last year after year after year.
Low maintenance.
Yes.
Like that.
Grundy, take a look at this one.
Yes.
This is a magnificent plant. This is autumn sage. Salvia gregae.
Yeah.
Doesn't it smell fantastic? It is fantastic. This one is flourishing.
Yeah.
This has been in the ground for a while. It is established. You know, when you buy a native plant, it may be kind of small. And
Yeah, little guys.
Yeah, kind of dinky little thing.
Yeah.
We like to say the first year that you put them in, the first year they sleep.
Okay.
The second year they creep.
Okay.
The third year they leap.
This is leap year.
This is leap year.
Yeah.
This is leap year, and we are enjoying the benefits of this.
Wow.
This no longer needs a lot of water.
Now, where do I get these?
So each one of these plants has its own natural history. It's got its own little stories to tell. So doing some of the research about what kind of plants you could use in your areas, many nurseries will sell these, places that specialize in native plants.
Gotcha.
When we look at the tag of these, we can sometimes get some more information. Get the name of it, get where it lives, if it's perennial, if it's annual. When you put plants into your landscaping, these native plants, these water conservation plants, not only are you doing a good thing for your water bill, you're doing a good thing for all the pollinators.
Great advice, Sam. So how do you create your own pollinator garden? First, find a spot in your yard. Use the rule of thirds and design for 1/3 usable grass, 1/3 hard surfaces like stepping stones, and 1/3 landscape beds like a pollinator garden. Check the area to see how much sun it gets. Full sun is great, and a little shade is okay too. Plan your garden with a simple design and a list of native plants proven to thrive in our climate. Check out the Texas Yard Makeover Weekend Project resources at waterisawesome.com to get started. Now, with your plan in hand, time to go to a local nursery that specializes in native plants. Read the tags and talk with the experts. Make sure the plants you choose match up with the amount of sun your pollinator garden will get. You can choose from perennials or annuals, plants that bloom at different heights or during different times of the year, deciduous or evergreen. Native plants give you a wide variety of choices. Also, follow these best practices for success. Add compost to your soil. It provides nutrients and helps hold water. Space your plants apart according to their full-grown shape. Dig the hole about twice as wide as the pot itself, and don't plant them too low. Be sure to hand water to get them going, or program the new drip system as needed for summer. Once established, Native pollinator plants will only need a little water if it hasn't rained in a week or two. A layer of hardwood mulch is always a good way to finish the project. You'll be amazed at how soon butterflies and hummingbirds find your new garden, and it will need very little water to thrive. Want to learn more? Visit Texas Yard Makeover at waterisawesome.com for more episodes and resources to help you with your next project.
With native plants and pollinators, the possibilities are endless. They save water, and come on, is there anything better than a yard filled with flowers, butterflies, and hummingbirds? So what are you doing next weekend?
All right. Thank you. We have 3 other episodes. They're all about 3 to 4 minutes. Doing your own sprinkler check, sprinkler upgrades. Yep.
And others.
And I forget the other one. And some in Spanish. We have 5 episodes from last year as well. So go check out. So Texas Yard Makeover is our pretend HGTV style show. I get lots of messages on Facebook, do our yard. I'm like, I wish, but we're trying to do it in a fun, engaging, entertaining way, but get that message across. And hopefully there's some valuable resources that people can use. We do have some upcoming webinars through Water is Awesome, Tough Texas Plants, and Texas Yard Makeover. And I'll leave this slide up. This is my last slide. And I think we've got 8 minutes for questions. Anybody want to ask first question of anything? Or we're already good. Oh, yeah.
No question on the top of my head, but I wanted to mention Grow Wild Greenery in Alton City
Awesome.
and the Native Gardeners Nursery in Euless.
Yeah.
Both of them are on Google Maps, and
Awesome.
they've got an awesome selection of native plants that are hard to find at a lot of the
Yeah.
other nurseries.
Yeah, I visited Native Gardeners, I think last week or so. I haven't been to the Haltom City one. I want to visit there. But yeah, thank you. I think I had Native Gardeners on there, and the Haltom City was on a list for the Native Plant Society has their own list as well. And those were just a few that I provided that were kind of close to this area. Anybody got any questions? Yeah, back.
Which one was the one using the list? You gave us the name for the one you used. What was the name?
Oh,
Native gardeners, wasn't it?
yeah, Native
Native
Gardeners.
Gardeners Nursery
Yep,
is in Euless.
Native Gardeners in Euless. Yeah, question?
I've got that big tree up in front of you, and, I think I really need to, real sold my roof as well.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of dead stuff up there that
Yep.
just needs to be cleaned out. Do you have a certified arborist that you recommend?
We do have a green professionals program. If you go to SaveTarrantWater.com, that we know these companies have gone through some extra training. So I can never be able to say one company, but for this question, we've developed a green professionals program. I think there are some companies on there that say that they do trees. We mainly go after companies that are doing landscaping and irrigation and stuff, but you are right. It is ideal to get a certified arborist.
Yeah.
And if you have an oak, there are very specific times that you want to trim that oak. I believe the best time is like December, but maybe right now we're getting close to the end of the other time of the year. It's all about preventing oak wilt, and that oak is your most valuable asset. So I am also looking for a certified arborist to trim my tree in December. Yeah, good points on that. Any other questions? Yeah.
If anyone wants to mark their calendar, the Grapevine Garden Club plant sale will be April 12th.
Thank you.
Saturday.
April 12th. But the best time to plant is fall. So use this next month, find that spot that you want to remove that turf grass, or if it's too much sun, or if it's died off. St. Augustine, part of my St. Augustine died because of what? Root rot or whatever. St. Augustine has tons of problems. It looks really good if it's going well, but man, it can just be wiped out. And if it's a full sun spot or challenging spot, or you can extend your landscape bed, shade spot, there are things we talked about, pictures we showed, resources I provided, thinking about it over the next month. If you were to scalp it and start saving cardboard, asking neighbors for cardboard, and pull some mulch down on it. it'll be ready to plant when you get that Go and Grow box or go to the plant sales in October, etc. Yeah.
We've got some English ivy that grows really well if it's partially shaded.
Yep.
That's probably not native, is it?
No, it's not native. But yeah, you know, in ideal world, I mean, but if it's working, you know, and it's not using a lot of water, and you know, maybe add natives around or add some as you go along. I used to work with somebody, you know, Asian jasmine, sure, really well, it can grows really well and holds back, but her joke was like the 80s called and it's got to go, or whatever. It's funny, or like that's what they put in the boxwoods, like that's whatever. Like that was 30 years ago. Like it is 2025. Let's bring our landscapes into 2025 or whatever. But if it's working, you know, yeah.
So I've heard about residents using artificial turf zones.
Mm.
What do you know about that? You don't have anything in your presentation?
Yeah, I did not include
Like
that.
the spot, you know, spots.
Yeah.
I don't know, like not the whole front yard.
Yeah.
That would be bad, I think, but what do you know about that?
Yeah. My son plays baseball, and like it's been on my brain too. And yes, turf fields, and then you know there was space going around, you know, the batting cages and the dugouts, and I could just see, you know, hundreds of players all day long, and there was some turf that just recently laid down, and I could understand that function of it or whatever, like really active, and like if it rained and it was just puddling mud, like it would cause messes. If you know, no turf grass would be able to withstand that, or maybe you bring in some patio stones or something. But overall, from a water conservation standpoint, we are not. We recognize, yes, it may use less water, but there are other functions that are beyond. We will never have a rebate that pays for artificial turf. There's a lot of, you can look up pros and cons and see that, but I understand there may be spots, I understand, but we will never say, go to our website and find your best artificial turf.
Okay.
2 for 1?
I had spoken with a friend and they mentioned about the weed ordinance that I guess the state of Texas has like an HOA rule that I guess HOAs can't require you to cut down native plants. Like you can like state that this is a native plant and then,
Yeah.
do you know anything about that?
I forget what it's called, but there is a House bill a few sessions ago, and it did prevent the HOAs from you not able to have water conservation, landscaping, rainwater harvesting, solar panels, I believe, etc. But it doesn't mean that they can't say anything. You have to, like, there are many examples that people that are on those boards or whatever don't want to hear it and don't want to listen, but by law, they are supposed to have avenues to allow these types of things. And there have been challenges and maybe some educational opportunities, etc. They cannot, it is by state law, they cannot outright prohibit it. So there has to be a mechanism for approving a plan or allowing those things. And I think every HOA is going to be a little bit different, but they are not legally able to outright deny it.
I was gonna ask about the mulch place on Dove.
Oh yeah.
It's near, I think it's called the Cross Timbers Trailhead. So it's just on the other side of the Cross Timbers Winery.
It's the.
So it used to be like this little fake dog park thing that people would take their dogs to. And then we had a tree farm there. Yeah. So if you just pull in on the other side of that treed area at Cross Timbers Winery, if you're a Grapevine resident, yeah, you see people hauling in the mulch in the back of their Subaru sometimes. But
Bring your shovel and your gloves and your truck or containers to hold it.
Yeah.
And no guaranteeing the quality or what have you, but it is free stuff, and I've used it.
Yeah, it gets the job done.
Any other questions?
Any more questions for Dustin?
One more.
I know you said this isn't an irrigation class, but how hard is it to transition from hard/expensive transition from spray to drip irrigation? And what tips would you have for people who are interested in?
I think that's the video I forgot. So, There are lots of videos out there. There are kits to do it, like this Rainbird 1800 sprinkler retrofit. That is what you're like ideally looking for. It's the 1800 retrofit kit, inline tubing, and you buy sprinkler parts from the irrigation supply house. Yes, you see it at the box stores, but for the quality and the components that you're really looking for, and you go to irrigation supply houses. These are Rainbird, Longhorn. Right up here in North Metro. You can go to Google Maps, type in irrigation supply. Don't go early mornings, Monday morning. That is when contractors are there to get their jobs fulfilled. You know, later in the morning, in the afternoon. They may not have the best customer service like Chick-fil-A or something, but they will help you. They'll work with you. But there are videos, and it's, you know, if you have a landscape bed that's 8 spray heads and it's spraying the house and it's all over the place and problems, you could essentially like cap 6 of those heads, keep 2 with those retrofit kits at one end on both ends of that landscape bed, and then you run tubing either in a grid pattern or specifically where you want your plants. And those retrofit kits have the filters and pressure regulation that you have to have for drip irrigation. And then it's kind of like Legos. You're just putting pieces together. There's my T's here, my 90s here, my crosses there. Keep some extra parts for repairs that will be needed because everything needs maintenance along the way or whatever. And how do you want them spaced? Go for, if you can, find like 0.6 gallons per hour. 0.9 is very, very common. But you're running them for like 45 minutes, maybe once or twice a week, depending on the time of the year. But it's applying water at the surface, and then cover it with mulch. That's what all the videos and stuff has. But that's a quick 2-minute drip irrigation retrofit. All right, I'll be around I have some cards too, but you've got some resources there and emails. Oh, it's good. Thank you. Have a good night.